Hello again, I'm Matt with Mr. Matt Woodworks, and today we're going to be looking at some tapered leg. I'll just. It's not a woodworking skeleton. Alright, is that a little better? Not having sassy bones over my shoulder there. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you the process of cutting some tapered legs. This was the process. This is the first time I've ever cut tapered legs for a dining table like this one. If you want to see the full dining room table build, you can click the little link that'll pop up there. But yeah, I'll take you through the process of what I was thinking on how to do this. Started with, well, basically I had no idea what I was doing, so I started with some half-inch plywood pieces to kind of figure things out in the same dimension that the legs were going to end up. And then, yeah, just grabbed some scraps around the shop and had at it until I finally figured out a way to make a jig that worked. And, well, you'll see. So let's dive into it. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this one or any of the other videos that I've made so far. So as I mentioned, to make sure that everything worked out seamlessly and perfectly when it came time to cutting the actual lumber that I was using for these table legs, I went ahead and found some scrap plywood that I had lying around the shop and cut that to the same width of the pieces I was going to be using for the legs. I wanted the angle of the legs to be at about 10 degrees. So I set my digital angle finder to 100 degrees, because that's 10 degrees off of 90, and then made the cuts for the bottom of the table legs. Here's where things get interesting. I know there's plenty of math out there to figure this out, but math can equal mistakes, so I am more of a mark in place kind of guy. I knew I wanted the overall height of my table to be 30 inches. My top was 1¼ inches thick, so the height of my table legs needed to be 28¾ inches tall. I measured on my workbench 28¾ inches from one side and used a square to line up the angled cut I had just made on the table saw. Using the other end of my workbench, this showed me where to cut the bottom so my angled legs would have an overall height of 28¾ inches, even with that 10-degree angle. It makes total sense, right? Well, whether it did or not, it worked out, so onward and upward. Now I turn my attention to the skirt. The skirt was going to be 4 inches wide, so I marked the top of my leg at 4 inches. Pretty easy so far, so I kept going. Angled legs were cool and all, but I wanted these angles to have angles, so I added a taper. I picked an arbitrary point at the base of the table leg that looked the right thickness, or thick knife for all of you 4 eyes lovers, and drew a line from that point to the 4-inch marker I had just made for the skirt. Stay with me here. I mentioned this was my first time with angled legs, right? So why not step it up a bit and add a miter joint to connect the legs to the skirt? This angle came out to be who the f*** knows, but I continued on pretending I had done this before. To cut the taper, I grabbed a piece of MDF that had a flat edge to ride along the fence. I transferred my taper lines down the sides of the half-inch plywood and lined those marks up to the saw edge of the MDF. You know, basic taper jig kind of stuff, because I've done this before, right? I didn't have any hold down clamps, so I improvised with some wedges and a little plywood lever kind of thing. This was actually a pretty genius move that got me through this project. I have since bought some actual hold down clamps, but the point of me showing you this is to inspire you to figure out a way to use what you already have on hand. Now, using some more angle finder magic, I set my crosscut guide to the new mystery angle for the skirt joints and snuck up on my line. We have our table leg. Here's going to be the little cross section to figure out how long this needs to be. The leg standing. I don't want the edge of this leg to stick out farther than the edge of the tabletop. I want to keep that maybe even in an inch or two. So, again with the math figuring outing, this to figure out how far out that needs to be. Lay a cheap square down, bring that so it's 90 degrees there. It's kind of following this as my vertical line. An inch or two back from the edge. And then that means we take this measurement here, which is actually right on the square, 6 1/4 inches. Tabletop is 32.5 inches wide. So if we want to have, so we have to do the math there, 32.5 minus 12.5. This is 6 1/4 plus 6 1/4 is 12.5. 32.5 minus 12.5 gives us an even 20 inches. So the top from long tip to long tip, so we cut in that way, will be 20 inches. These are the pieces I cut for the skirt, and they are 24 inches, so we've got a little bit of room to spare, which is super great news. I'll level with you, this is the first time that I've done tapered legs before like this, and just kind of figuring it out as I go. If there is an easier way to do this, please leave it down in the comments so I don't make this mistake again. Or not mistake, but you know, so it's easier for me the next time I have to do this. But it all seems to be coming together now, so that's good. I'm a visual learner. So it's helpful for me to actually see what it is I'm working with. So I've used some scrap 1/2 inch plywood to get the base put together and all the dimensions. I cut 2 legs and one of these cross curtainy kind of pieces, and realized that the width between here was just a little bit too narrow for my liking. You could fit a chair in there just barely, but it also had to be a very low seated chair. So I adjusted the taper by about 1/2 inch. Took a 1/2 inch off. The top up here remained the same, but down at the bottom took about a 1/2 inch off. And then over here you can see this wonderful, I had this just tacked together with a little piece of plywood and some brad nails to hold that joint together. And I added another inch and a half into there. So just pulled that back, tacked another piece in place, and then experimented with the chair inside my house, and it fits a whole lot more loosey-goosey now, which is exactly what we wanted. And the table, the edge of the tabletop is going to come down in line with the edges of these. So I didn't, you know, my whole goal was to not have these feet sticking out beyond the surface of the tabletop, and we somehow got it to work just right and be loose and goosey, and it's good to go now. So I can actually start cutting some table legs. And now it's go time. I cut my stock to width to match everything I had done with my test pieces, and then started cutting. I had to beef up the taper jig a bit, but the mechanics of it all worked out just the same, and holy crap, I made a tapered leg. And spoiler alert, the table came together just the way that I wanted it to and has since been delivered, so I didn't need to quit my job or burn my shop down, so new skills win. And I hope the methods that I explored will help you kind of think outside the box when you're trying to accomplish a new task or skill. If this helped you at all, or you enjoyed this video, click that like button and subscribe for more content. Turning on notifications will let you know whenever I post new content. And I've got a lot more content. And if you have any questions or suggestions, please, please, please leave a comment down below. Thanks again for hanging out on this little journey, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.